Hey, what's going on, everyone? Just figured I'd catch everyone up on a current reads style video. Just had to take a break to make some life decisions and all that kind of stuff and whatnot. But yeah, I think on my channel it's definitely gonna have to be current reads instead of Friday reads, just because with my mediocre editing skills and my lackadaisical internet connection sometimes, it's just not really feasible for me to get a video uploaded Friday night and record the video that Friday evening. Is just not happening. So we're going to be sticking with current reads, but I figured I'll just talk about a couple of the books I've read recently, what I just recently started, and what the next book around the corner is going to be. Still going to be doing my TBR video and everything, hopefully in the next day or two, but yeah, just figured go with that. And then one other thing is I kind of was yapping about doing powerlifting and all that stuff in a previous video, and I think we kind of went with like a soft green light to try to go ahead with it. I'm gonna like try to train for like the majority of this year and see what happens. So today was I figured out which program I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna start with like a 9-week GZCL program. Today was the first day, so really excited about that. But let's just get on to some books and whatnot. All right. So, first up was my latest very short introduction that I read, which is Quantum Theory by John Polkinghorne, who was a pretty famous, well, I mean, he was like I think he was like, you know, a physicist slash philosopher slash theologian kind of guy. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I have way more questions than any answers after reading this. I don't know if it's even like up to date per se, just because I want to say this was this came out like 20 years ago or something. So yeah, 2002. Don't know if it sounds like a long time in this kind of field and whatnot, but I have a better grasp of like the ABCs of, you know, the quantum stuff. But yeah, still, physics was never like my strong suit per se. Definitely, I was always a lot better with the life sciences and whatnot. So, but like I said, didn't really know anything about it, but it comes up a lot in like other books. So I figured I'd try it. Yeah, probably for those who, you know, went to school for sciences, at least the hard sciences and whatnot. Yeah, I feel like they probably wouldn't get as much out of it. I did like, there was one chapter, the first chapter is kind of like a history of like the big thinkers in quantum mechanics and all that kind of stuff. But there was a whole chapter on like kind of philosophical schools of thought when dealing with like quantum theory and everything, which I thought was really cool. I definitely would recommend it if you literally know nothing about it like me. But like I said, I feel like I have more questions than answers, so I'm probably going to have to parse the bibliography, though. I might just go online, because I feel like there's probably like more like up-to-date ones on something like that. Next up is Land Power. This is by, let's see, Michael Albertus. Who has it, who doesn't, and how that determines the fate of societies. And Basic Books was kind enough to send this to me. I really enjoyed this one. So this is all about all around the world. I like how it does not focus just on North America, but there is the one North American one that was highlighted quite a bit was the settler reform in Canada, actually, during most of the 1800s and early 1900s. But a lot of South America is covered, East Asia, in Europe and stuff. But it's all about different land policies over the course of history, and some that have worked, some that haven't worked, all the problems that some of them have had, and kind of like the common trends with things like land redistribution. How does that even like go about, you know, as far as like government changes and things, and then government policies to do it. But like it was kind of interesting. I like read a little bit about settler reform, but also like tiller reform is really interesting. So now I'm thinking about trying to find some books on that, which is basically trying to I guess break up giant conglomerations of like land holdings and put the land under the tiller and stuff for small, like basically like homesteaders and smaller time farmers and stuff. But it kind of goes off on different countries where things like that have worked and where they haven't, which is kind of, like I said, kind of interesting. I think the chapters I really enjoyed the most were two of the ones kind of dealing mostly with South America. So I like the one on Chile, dealing with Patagonian stuff. Obviously, you know, gotta kind of have the nature conservation kind of stuff going on there. But also like in Venezuela, and how in places like that, even if it's not perfect, you know, there's still a lot of problems. Sometimes there's corruption, you know, bureaucracy, red tape, all that kind of stuff. But in general, kind of the overall trends that are benefiting society, such as like women having a lot more rights and being able to actually like hold land and create businesses and stuff due to actually owning you know, capital in the form of land and stuff like that. So I found this one actually really interesting. I'll have to see if I can do like an individual book review on that one. And then my absolute latest one is The Socrates Express in Search of Life Lessons from Dead Philosophers by Eric Weiner, who's probably most famous, I think, for the Geography of Genius, which actually I found out I do have. It was like way down in like one of the corners, like near the bottom and stuff, and I haven't actually read it, so apologies to that. And actually, Avid Reader Press was kind enough to send me this one. We had talked about another book that I'll be reviewing pretty soon, and they asked if they could send a couple more my way that they thought I might like, and this was one of them. I think because it was like on, you know, philosophical themes and stuff like that. I did like it. This is definitely a very beginner-friendly book. It felt like a very almost like philosophy 101 kind of class, where the author is a journalist dealing with like economic stuff and things like that. Worked for I think NPR, if I remember correctly. And so it's very like kind of casual, like talking and stuff about his kind of like usually going to the places where the different philosophers lived, and you know, just kind of like meandering through like some of their like schools of thought and whatnot. What I liked the most about this book was there was quite a few chapters on some of the lesser known, I guess maybe in these kinds of books, philosophers or philosophies that get talked over or skipped over quite a bit. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Epicurus and Epicureanism. He is in there. Simone Weil is in there. Let's see, Gandhi's in there, though I have mixed feelings on him and stuff, but like Schopenhauer and Thoreau are included, so there's a whole lot of cool stuff in here. Obviously a few of the bigger ones, you know, Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics and you know, Plato, Socrates, and Nietzsche, stuff like that have to be included as well. But like I said, you have a good smattering of some of the kind of not the S tier ones that always get included in this kind of stuff. So I thought that was really cool. I think my favorite chapter, though, besides my biased Epicurus kind of fascination and stuff, was his one on Simone de Beauvoir's and her thoughts and like kind of ways of thinking on aging and aging well and that kind of thing, which I thought was actually really, really cool. So I definitely would recommend this for those who just literally don't know anything about philosophy, but like the idea of like learning about it and stuff. I think that'd be kind of a good way to start. So one that I'm reading right now is Finding the Mother Tree. This is by Suzanne Simard, and I was able to get it in digital format from my library for once, which is kind of weird, just because our local libraries have basically nothing as far as you know, cloud services and that kind of stuff goes. But I'm reading this one as a buddy read with one of my friends over on Discord. So yeah, I've been trying to do at least like one buddy read a month between the philosophy, the history, and the science stuff kind of going on. And this is one that just sort of popped up when she had mentioned it. And I had talked about how I had that on my TBR at some point. So yeah, we just decided to read this one. And this is all about Suzanne, who was a forester in Canada. And then she started doing a lot more, I think, harder like tree science and research and all that kind of stuff. And she's a big one of the founders of the school of, well, I guess not school of thought, but the whole I guess what would you even call it? It's not even really a theory, just finding out about what is now known as the Wood Wide Web, which is basically how a lot of these trees and plants communicate with each other through their root systems and the mycelial fungal networks that connect them all, and how they're able to then share nutrients and then also like kind of know which plants to send nutrients to and stuff, and they can kind of sort of detect, you know, when like danger, you know, between like maybe like a infestation from like some kind of infection, or maybe like a bug, an insect, you know, like blight or something like that. and things like that, and how they can prioritize helping each other out, and prioritizing like the ones that are kind of most in need, including ones from other species, even though they can also detect their own like kind of genetic offspring and stuff a lot of times. So it's pretty crazy stuff. So I'm only on chapter 2, but yeah, I'm just really enjoying it so far and wanting to learn a lot more. My newest book that I started earlier today is one I'm going to be adding to my gardening shelf here. The Living Soil Handbook, the No-Till Grower's Guide to Ecological Market Gardening by Jesse Frost. And this is a book I've had on my like want to get list for like forever and ever and ever. And usually each spring I try to grab like a book or two on gardening and add it to the collection and whatnot. But yeah, no-tilling is a method that I use. Where like I use the same beds like most years and that kind of thing, and just kind of try to keep them as intact as possible, rather than tilling everything under, making new rows and beds like every spring. But yeah, it kind of talks about, I assume this book is going to be talking about a lot like why that's like, you know, good for the soil health, because you're not breaking up those like mycelial networks and things, and all the different insect pathways and stuff that they've created and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be really cool. It seems to be high quality, lots of good information, lots of photographs, some illustrations and stuff. And I think it goes fairly heavy on like the soil science aspect of things, which I think is going to be really cool. And like I said, I plan on trying to do more outdoor videos, and maybe like try to do gardening book reviews / just talk about gardening books. I'm not 100% sure how that's going to work. If only I didn't live in, you know, zone 4 for hardiness zones. For those who don't know, it means it's really cold. I have snow still on the ground and stuff, so a lot of people have already been able to kind of get going with spring sowing and stuff, and I'm still like at least like a month away before I can even like consider that as an option. But yeah, definitely looking forward to kind of just parsing through that over the next month or so. And then in April, I am starting it. We're doing it. I'm going to be posting on Discord. There's been interest in people wanting to kind of do a big buddy read kind of book with this, and it's A.C. Grayling's The History of Philosophy, which is just a nice like 600 or 700 page, you know, book dealing with, you know, the entire or the majority of, you know, philosophical, you know, history from the pre-Socratics down to the current time period. It's very well regarded, and it's fairly modern. I want to say it's only like 10 years old-ish. Not even 2019, so only 5 or 6 years old there. So it's gonna be really fun. I've heard really great things about Grayling and some of his like other books and stuff. So definitely looking forward to it. And I'm hoping this is just like a really, a good and like better update to like things like probably the other one that's big in this kind of school of thought is like Will Durant's like Story of Philosophy, which is like not that's just because it's 100 years old, but that one's like a very cursory kind of like overview kind of thing. So hopefully, since Grayling himself is a philosopher, not just like a historian, I feel like it's going to be maybe get quite a bit more out of it. And what I'm hoping is there's probably a lot of like lesser known schools of thought and theories and philosophers that I either have never heard of or, you know, don't know too much about, and they're going to be brought up hopefully, and it'll give me like different avenues to be thinking about, to look into and start reading and whatnot. So there you have it. Those are a couple books, like I said, that I've read, been reading, will read. No, I'm not going to say that. I am reading History of Philosophy over the course of April for sure. Hopefully we'll finish it in a month, though. I'm going to take this one a little bit slower than most of my other reads and stuff. But let me know what you're planning on reading in April. There's quite a few different events, most notably probably People April, which I will also be participating in. Hopefully I'm planning on reading 2 or 3 either biographies or memoirs and that kind of thing to participate in that. And then hopefully, like I said, my other videos will start coming out fairly regularly now that things are slowing down again. So anyways, like I said, let me know what you're most looking forward to reading, and I will see you down in the comments. And whatever you end up choosing, always remember, read victoriously.